Good morning and welcome to the Texas Oil and Gas Association Eagle Ford and Laredo Virtual Energy Summit. Today we are in unprecedented times. That's an understatement. The disruption to society from the COVID pandemic has made everyone worldwide adjust our way of living, working, and educating our children. That's why we're bringing to you this virtual energy summit, powering your community. Oil and gas have been the cornerstone of the Texas economy and will continue to be. The Eagle Ford Shale region, including down to Laredo, is dynamic to the Texas economy. And we have a very insightful program today on how we can all power forward together. No event is possible without partners, and I want to start by thanking TXOGA's 2020 event sponsors, Concho Resources, PDC Energy, Oventive, and the Port of Corpus Christi. And a huge thank you to our Energy Summit Series sponsors, Marathon Petroleum, Occidental, and Sempra LNG. And we certainly couldn't do this without our partners in the Eagle Ford, the South Texas Energy and Economic Roundtable, and the Chambers of Commerce of B County, Laredo, Dimmitt County, and Karnes City. Many families have benefited and businesses have grown substantially in Eagle Ford communities thanks to oil and gas activity. And just as this mighty region has prospered, so has Texas. In 2019, just in this region, oil and natural gas activity accounted for over $414 million paid directly to school districts. In fact, United ISD in Laredo ranked number 2 for oil and gas property taxes statewide, collecting over $68 million in revenue, which accounts for 32% of the ISD's tax base. And more than $112 million was paid directly to Eagle Ford counties in oil and gas mineral property taxes. Additionally, tens of thousands of Texas families in the Eagle Ford are supported directly by the industry in jobs that pay an average of $125,000. More about the statewide benefits in a little bit. Right now, it's important to know that while producing the revenues that funds our schools, our roads, and first responders, oil and natural gas companies are simultaneously investing heavily in environmentally sound technologies that are resulting in significant environmental progress. Pioneering technologies, innovations, and advancements allow the industry to develop and deploy cleaner energy technologies and world-class emissions control systems. The industry's commitment to progress is a major reason why air quality has dramatically improved over just the past 2 decades. All in all, Texas is cleaner, stronger, and better because of the positive influence of oil and natural gas produced right here in the Lone Star State. But it's not just our industry that recognizes this. A recent study confirms that 7 in 10 Texans support a candidate who supports domestic energy production. And a recent national report revealed that U.S. workers actually like and prefer their oil and natural gas jobs, saying they provide better pay, health benefits, pensions, and career opportunities than those in renewable industries. This is important because many politicians today are talking about transitioning oil and natural gas industry workers into green energy sector jobs. But the people doing the work in oil and natural gas are happy with their jobs. It's important to know that any plan seeking to undermine this industry will set back climate progress, put Texans out of jobs, decrease funding for our state and local governments, and increase your energy costs while making us dependent on foreign sources for our basic energy needs. Knowing how imperative this industry is to our state, it's so important to make your voice heard in the upcoming election. On the screen, important voter registration information and upcoming deadlines. Please be sure to mark your calendar to go vote this year and take a family member with you. Take several friends with you. It's important that you vote, remind your friends, and it's also important to back candidates who understand we can have both a good environment and good jobs. Now I want to introduce our first guest speaker to lead off our discussion of how the oil and natural gas industry is powering your community. We are so pleased to welcome Webb County Judge Tano Tijerina. Before being elected to the judgeship of Webb County in 2015, Judge Tijerina built up an impressive resume, playing several years of minor league baseball with the Milwaukee Brewers and graduating from Texas A&M International in 2002. He is heavily involved in the ranching and oil and gas industry in Webb County. Judge, we're glad that you could be with us today, and we look forward to having a conversation.
Hello, how's everyone doing today? Thank you, Todd, for this opportunity. Much appreciated. We're doing really, really good.
Well, good.
So far, under these circumstances, you know how this works.
Absolutely. These circumstances are unprecedented. They've been really historic for lots of industries. We know the oil and gas industry is suffering mightily. We know that tourism is suffering, restaurants are suffering, our airlines are. And so, Judge, you're the chief officer in Webb County, and we thought we'd start out today with kind of you giving us an idea about where's Webb County, how's your local economy, how are the businesses doing, are you seeing any kind of a rebound, just kind of where are you at today?
It's been obviously a challenging times for all of us here, not just nationally in the state, but also locally. I mean, yes, we've been in a situation for some time here in Webb County. Obviously, tourism has gone down tremendously because of the war on drugs and whatnot with Ford Laredo. You know, that situation, I think everybody's has been, you know, has known that for some time now. But then all of a sudden, when you have an opportunity, or when you have a situation like the oil and gas, when that starts affecting you in our local economy, it does play a major part. And I will tell you, I mean, we have 3 ISDs here. We have United ISD, which is one of the biggest ISDs in the state of Texas. They're the big 6A, what you would want to call them. I think it's actually the second largest. We have one high school, the second largest high school in the state of Texas. That's a UISD. LISD also has quite a bit of high schools. It's got like 2 or 3, I think, and then, you know, going through all that. And then we have Webb ISD. Webb ISD also has a high school and the other schools, and I believe that one has probably been the most impacted as far as oil and gas, because, and I'm talking about the Bruni, Olton, that area has always been a huge oil gas producing area for us in Webb County. So when you have those kind of situations and all of a sudden the oil and gas are gone, you're talking about, especially these ISDs, and I'm just speaking on these ISDs alone, you know, they're taking millions and millions of dollars in shortcuts. So you're going from basically, you know, like they say, you're going from geek to sheep or sheep to geek really quick. You know, it's the unprecedented time. So yes, it has been affected. I mean, just here locally, you know, we're having a $28 to $30 million shortfall, and we're having to cut that in half. And you know, we average about $28 to $30 million on oil and gas revenues alone. And then this year alone has been cut in half, and then on half again. So it has hurt us quite a bit.
Well, you really have. I know. I'm sure your schools are trying to juggle just how to educate the kids today. Do you have them at home? Do you bring them to school? How do you manage the health issues? I know United ISD was like ranked number 2 in the statewide for the oil and gas property tax revenues that were generated that, you know, went into educating those kids. Just you mentioned the county's revenue has dropped as well. I think almost a quarter of the entire Webb County budget is generated by oil and gas revenues. So are y'all having to have you already started that process of what next year is going to look like with this reduced values that you may be looking at, and what kind of services might be impacted?
I'm glad you asked that question. We just passed our fiscal budget this past Monday for the year 2021. We just passed it, 2021. It's been a substantial amount that we have lost in revenues. Again, I'd say it, $28 to $30 million average. Here we are cutting it in half, and now half. I'd like to rewind just a little bit. The first 3 years that I showed up here, I was blessed to be as your county judge, the county judge in Webb County, very blessed. But in my first year, 2015, 2016, 2017, before I came in, 2014, there was almost about $8 million surplus just on oil and gas revenues, just on oil and gas. When I came in 2015, believe it or not, we were at a -3 deficit, negative, $3 million deficit. And then all of a sudden, here comes 2016, we're at an $8 million deficit. And then all of a sudden, here comes the following year, so we had another $2-3 million deficit, all because of oil and gas. So I guess to answer your question correctly, the first 3 years we had to learn how to deal without oil and gas. Unfortunately, it's one of our main revenue sources because, as you know, counties, it's really difficult. The state of Texas doesn't allow us to go out there and bring in much revenues like the cities do. But with us here in the county, so the first 3 years were very difficult. The fourth and fifth year came around and we ended up putting some monies away. And that's the reason why we were able to help ourselves and sustain ourselves this past year. So I'll bring it back. So 2014, 2015, when I came in, we were at an $89 million budget with $14 million in the bank. This past year, before COVID, pre-COVID, we were at $118 million with $39 million in the bank. So obviously with COVID hitting and the oil and gas revenue is not there, this past year, believe it or not, when everybody else is doing furloughs, when everybody else is hurting for monies, I hate to say this, but we actually gave a raise. And we actually did really well. No furloughs. We have about 1,470 employees. We even brought their insurances down. We were able to do things like that. Why? It goes back to oil and gas. Because the first 3 years that we were here, we had to learn how to deal without those monies. So it wasn't really that much of an impact to us to say, this is my 6th year in office. It wasn't that huge of an impact. But man, I wish I had those revenues back because we could be able to do a lot more things to be able to do a quality of life for the Webb County residents.
We wish you had them back too, Judge. We can't wait for the worldwide economy to pick back up, to people to start traveling again. We spoke to the Texas comptroller recently, and he said that pre-COVID, there's about 2.3 million air travelers a day. And then when the COVID was implemented, that dropped to 90,000. And it hasn't even picked back up. It's hovering a little under 1 million most of the time. So air travel is half of what it was. And so we want people to have these products. We want to get our energy employees back to work. And we want to be the partner that we are with local communities like Webb County and throughout the Eagle Ford, to where our industry is the kind of neighbor and the kind of partner to help fund our schools and to fund our roads. We're excited that this last legislative session, we worked with the legislature and the delegation to the legislature appropriated some funding for county roads in energy producing areas. And we think that has been an impactful and helpful program, and appreciate your efforts and conversations we had with you and fellow judges in the Eagle Ford to help promote those types of policies. We've got just a couple of minutes left, Judge. You mentioned the importance of oil and gas. My question is kind of compound, not compound, it's a two-part question. Do you think the typical citizen recognizes the role that oil and gas plays in funding the county budget and funding the school budget? And two, what can industry do to help elevate that awareness some?
Your first part of your question is absolutely not. I don't think people realize what is actually the revenues. I think people get a lot of confusion between the cities and the counties. So I think there has to be a complete distinction between city and counties. Counties can get all these revenues. City of Laredo, perfect example. Their major revenue source are the bridges. We don't have that here in Webb County. Our major revenue source would be from the oil and gas. We're constantly talking to people about this. We have beautiful 6th largest county in the state of Texas, and it's a huge oil producing, gas producing wells. It's generations and generations, families and families. But everybody's had to make an adjustment. Everybody's had to understand. Even including myself, my personal life. The monies, the revenues are just not coming in because of the producing. And unfortunately, I know that there's been a lot of talk about how much is down the pipeline and whatnot, and that's the reason why our monies are, the gas is not the way it used to be. I'm praying and I'm asking the good Lord to be able to help this economy out. More importantly, bring back oil and gas, not just for the people to have that extra income like they used to and to be able to spend it, but more importantly, to be able to produce something that's really sound, that really is good for Webb County. The quality of life. those are the monies that I kind of wish I had them right now because I just know I could do so much with them. But hey, we all have to go through our trials and tribulations. But I will tell you that oil and gas, the Eagle Ford Shale, the people, I mean, the amount of people, I think, we have probably around 5,000 to 6,000 that are employed with the oil and gas. And then all of a sudden to have probably three-quarters of them, probably even more, 90% of them lose their jobs.
Yeah.
You're talking huge amount of money, huge amount of families are being affected. How can we replenish that? So that's what we need to figure out. Hopefully you guys, I know you all have been doing an incredible job. You're always looking out for us and trying to push this. So I appreciate everything that y'all are doing, Todd. I really do. Thank you.
Well, Judge, we thank you. It's about leadership and stepping up. And I know our South Texas Energy and Economic Roundtable, our member companies that participate in that, led by former County Judge Stephanie Marino, and the county judges in the Eagle Ford area really work. And I think there's some policy initiatives that can help. I think we need to make certain that we make climate progress, and we need to address the environmental concerns in a science-based manner. Our members are leading the way with methane and flaring best practices. We know that we need essential infrastructure. Webb County understands that with the roads that you have, the pipelines to move products so that gasoline can be moved to communities near you. So we look forward to continued partnership, and we hope you'll come to see us when you're in Austin. And we appreciate the great work that you do.
Well, once again, I want to thank you guys. The Texas Oil and Gas Association has always been a key part of the backbone of Texas. That's who we are. Let's face it. I know there's a lot of movement to kind of steer a different direction, but I will tell you that we are very proud Texans. We're proud of our Texas oil and gas, and we're proud producers, and we want to continue that, and we want to continue receiving the resources that we can. So thank you all. I know that these times are difficult, but we're going to get through them one day at a time.
Thanks for joining us today, Judge. We're honored to have you, and we wish you and Webb County the absolute very best. Have a good week. Thanks. What a great way to kick off this morning's program. I would now like to welcome State Representative J.M. Lozano to our program. Representative Lozano serves Texas House District 43, which includes B, Jim Wells, Clayburgh, and San Patricio counties. The representative earned his bachelor's degree from UT Austin and his master's from the University of Incarnate Word. As the chairman of the House Environmental Regulation Committee, Representative Lozano advocates for good-paying jobs and a sustainable environment. Representative, we're so glad that you're able to join us in this virtual setting today, and we look forward to your remarks on how oil and natural gas is powering the communities that you serve. Good morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be sharing my comments with TXOGA and its members. As you know, in my district in South Texas, we've talked all the way back when we first met when you were our ag commissioner, how South Texas is very much similar to Palestine in the sense that you have towns that are anywhere from 5, like Palestine is about 15 to 20,000, and some of the best paying jobs are in oil and gas. And so while we're in high school, those of us that had fathers or mothers who worked, they were looking forward to having the same career path and seeing the fruits of their labor. And so as I went into session, that very first session in 2011, I took that heart with me, letting members know how critical those jobs are to our region, to our school districts in terms of ad valorem taxation and to our state as a whole. But I'm proud to represent an area that includes what's called the Port of the Americas, the Port of Corpus Christi. It has expanded tremendously in the last 10, 15 years. In San Patricio County, we've had some significant developments such as Exxon building an ethylene cracker facility, Cheniere doing LNG exports. We've been blessed in our state to have such a wonderful industry and wonderful partners in industry. And last session, I was proud to work with y'all in passing House Bill 2771, which was a transfer of water discharge permits from the Railroad Commission to TCEQ that would streamline that process, and House Bill 1708, which expedited the processing of air permits. We want to make it as streamlined a process as possible. And so I look forward to continuing to work with you and your great organization, and I thank you for advocating for really the heart of the state of Texas when it comes to our economy.
Well, we know that your district is important to the state. The Eagle Ford area has generated tremendous amounts of opportunities. It's improved families. It's given communities economic development. And you and I are both been involved in economic development initiatives. And we know how hard it is to attract businesses. And we know how hard it is to attract jobs to communities. And we're really proud of the work that oil and gas has done. It's difficult right now. We know that local governments are suffering because of the lack of revenue, the lack of economic activity, just like the state of Texas is, Representative. We
Yes.
talked to Controller Hager not too long ago, and he gave a statistic that I thought was, told us a lot. He said, air travel pre-COVID was about 2.3 million travelers a day. When the world shut down and our national economy shut down, that dropped to 90,000.
Wow.
And now that it's been relieved a little bit, the numbers are still less than half of what it was. And so, air travel, restaurants, our schools are reinventing themselves. Your kids are probably inside studying and going to school.
Yes.
While you're online. And so we're all doing things a little bit differently. Thinking about schools, Representative, ever since I've known you, you've been an advocate for colleges and universities and trade schools and opportunities for people to advance themselves, a real leading voice for education funding. Can you talk to us a little bit this morning about how royalties and revenues paid by oil and gas companies impact schools in your district?
Yes, sir. Specifically, in our district, it was about $2 billion of revenue for the school districts and colleges in our House district. That's a tremendous amount of revenue. It's a blessing. That revenue helps minimize tuition increases. It helps local school districts provide more test preparation for their students. It also, most importantly though, allows school districts to be able to have trade and technical programs, which are very expensive. Many industry partners partner with our local school districts to provide them the equipment, to provide the training for welding certification, and that's very expensive equipment. All of that is possible because of people getting up at 3 a.m, driving to work, getting on that rig, putting on their equipment, working hard all day, sometimes working overtime. And that's a way of life where we're from in South Texas. And so one of the things I've always spoken with you about is for a while, I believe higher education, school after high school, for some reason, we weren't emphasizing junior and community colleges as much. We may have in the legislature, but for some reason in the social networks locally, all of our parents were telling us, you have to go to a 4-year college. And so consequently, what we have, like in my senior class in high school, many of us went to college. And by the end of the first or second semester, over half were out of college because they couldn't pass chemistry or college algebra. And so they end up with a college debt that they can never write off. It's going to ruin their credit. When I've seen many of those same students, my former classmates, go on to work, whether it was Halliburton, there's a company in Alice called Fesco, and they are encouraged to go get a certification from Del Mar College or Coastal Bend College, and it completely transforms that individual. it shows them that there's actually a type of higher education that is hands-on that they immediately gravitate towards. They complete it and they end up making more money because of that certification. And so I've always championed for that, more of those opportunities in the legislature to provide our employers the skills-based workforce that they need.
You really have, and I think it would surprise a lot of people to recognize how big a role that oil and natural gas plays in making those opportunities available. And I think that's one of the things that makes you such a good representative, is that you recognize these opportunities need to be there, and that policies matter, and how you fund these schools, and making certain that our trade schools and community colleges have the resources they need to provide a quality education and further a skilled workforce. In thinking about the theme that oil and gas is making opportunities available, I know last session the legislature relied on the rainy day fund to fill some much needed budget requirements for communities. I think y'all appropriated over $6 billion from the fund that is funded solely by oil and natural gas. Can you discuss some of the programs there from the rainy day funding last session that you championed or have a strong interest in, Representative?
Yes, absolutely. One of the unique facts that I think very few Texans know of is that the rainy day fund, the revenues come solely from oil and gas activities. And so when we were in a bind that session after Hurricane Harvey, were it not for the rainy day fund, we would have been in big trouble. And so it's almost like when we were on the floor voting on that legislation, I wanted to hold up a sign that said, "Thank you, oil and gas," because we were able.
That would have been good. We would have liked that. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tremendous blessing that we have that. It helps the state of Texas on a nationwide scale when our bonds are rated by Moody's. The fact that we have such a robust rainy day fund, we've got a better bond rating. And so that specific session, when we were able to use the rainy day fund, we used it for Hurricane Harvey relief, backfilling. There was money that had to be moved around from agencies before, so school districts, we were making them whole again. Specifically in our local colleges, A&M Kingsville, A&M Corpus, all colleges in Texas for that matter, were provided a hold harmless in the budget. Hold harmless means that but for these funds, they were going to get a cut. And so it eliminated all the cuts for our higher education institutions. Obviously, I looked at on the condition that they were going to prioritize career and tech programs. The fund continues to accrue every session. At some point, there's a cap on top. You can't exceed that. And while we did use $6 billion, we did it in a very conservative way. You know, we didn't drain the fund. It was a very good thing for the state.
I thought y'all were wise in the way you managed that, and from meeting the needs of Hurricane Harvey to our schools to helping the state hospital system. Y'all really use those dollars wisely, I think. And I want to say, when y'all go into session, it's projected to have a fund balance of a little over $8 billion, almost $9 billion. So you were wise in holding that back, because now nobody could have forecasted the pandemic, the decline in activity, and it's paid for on severance taxes. And if we aren't producing oil and natural gas, then the revenue stream is going to hit the pause button for a little while. We've got time for a couple more questions, I think, but one thing that I thought was interesting, and I know that you were a champion for, some funding came from the rainy day fund and some from other sources for grants to counties that plan, maintain, and reconstruct roads in the oil and gas energy sectors of our state. I know that your district has been funded awards under those grants. Are you hearing feedback about the importance of this from your local officials, and that these dollars will start being put to work in the local communities?
Absolutely. In fact, I've been hearing more about that from neighbors. We have a small little acreage in Sinton, Texas, and that's one of the #1 complaints for any county commissioner is the roads.
Yeah.
And we are blessed that we have significant production, and those are very heavy trucks. You know, they do weigh on the roads literally, but we were able to provide those funds to help counties. Again, it's from oil and gas collections, and so it's a way of showing how the industry respects. They don't just extract resources and make a profit. They're giving back to the community, whether it's through ad valorem taxation, whether it's through sponsorships with Little League teams. I still have a shirt when I was in Little League that has Fesco on the back, and it was the oil field services company in Alice. And in this case, when it comes to roads, it's a very expensive per mile. I already forgot the millions of dollars it costs per mile to do, but specifically B County received $256,000, Jim Wells $232,000, Clayburg $212,000, and San Patricio $469,000. And so when you add those up, you're looking at over $1 million just for my house district. Same for most other members in energy producing house districts.
Congratulations to you for working to get that process through. I like the fact that oil and gas is producing these revenues to the state, and they produce revenues to the local communities as well. But the legislature recognized that there wasn't a true up there, and so y'all put some money in when there's this extra level of activity. And I think that's going to really enhance the safety and then protect lives by having these quality roads. So congratulations to you on that work, and we're glad to support you in those efforts. I know we're out of time this morning. You have a busy day, and our listeners do as well. But one thing, just real quickly in closing, if you could, this legislative session could be much different than any of us alive today has ever seen. With the pandemic, can you just briefly tell us about any contingencies you're looking at? I mean, I don't think we always want school kids to come to the Capitol, but I don't know if this session, that's going to be the best way to do it. Can you talk about what you are envisioning here for the legislative session?
Yes, absolutely. I know specifically, like on the House floor, they're discussing having a clear divider between you and your desk mate. That speaks in and of itself of the level of social distancing or barriers that they want to have to protect. And so when it comes to kids visiting the Capitol, large groups, I think they're going to be more restrictive on allowing large groups in. The session is going to be a very busy session. We're going to have to address the budget, which is going to be a difficult appropriations session. We have redistricting every 10 years. We're at that session where we're going to possibly be beginning that process. And the pandemic.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
The pandemic, there's still so many unknowns as to if the vaccine is to what extent it'll be distributed. If we still don't know what that scenario is going to look like.
Well, your hands will be full. There's no doubt about it. You are a leader. You are a problem solver. You've got a great track record of rolling up your sleeves, and we certainly thank you for being with us today, and we appreciate your leadership. We hope you have a great rest of the week, and if we can help you in any way, please let us know. Ladies and gentlemen, Representative J.M. Lozano. Representative, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I now have the pleasure of introducing the Executive Director of the South Texas Energy and Economic Roundtable, Stephanie Marino, to our program. This organization, commonly known as STEER, aims to ensure the development of the Eagle Ford can power forward as Texas continues to rely on this region for our energy. Stephanie recently served as the B County Judge and now plays an integral part of STEER's operations. We're glad Stephanie is here to moderate our discussion with a leading U.S. Congressman who I had the pleasure of serving with in the Texas House of Representatives, Henry Cuellar. Stephanie, thanks for joining us, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks for having me, Todd. As you touched on, STEER's primary goal is to be a resource in the Eagle Ford area as we continue to harness oil and natural gas in a manner that is mutually beneficial to the industry and communities throughout the area. Our next speaker needs no introduction. Serving his 8th term in the U.S. House of Representatives, Congressman Henry Cuellar proudly represents Texas's 28th Congressional District, which includes the cities of Laredo, Mission, Rio Grande City, and San Antonio. Congressman Cuellar earned his associate degree from Laredo Community College, his master's degree from Texas A&M International University, and earned both a Juris Doctor and PhD from the University of Texas at Austin. Congressman Cuellar serves as the only Texas Democrat on the powerful U.S. House Appropriations Committee. He is the Vice Chair of the House Appropriations Subcommittee on Homeland Security, while also serving on the Defense Subcommittee and the Subcommittee on Agriculture, Rural Development, Food and Drug Administration, and related agencies. We are pleased to welcome Congressman Henry Cuellar, a real fighter for Texas and for industry. Congressman, we are fortunate to have you here today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you so much. And I, first of all, to Texas Oil and Gas, and to my good friend Todd Staples, hello, and to you. Thank you so much for that kind of introduction. I really appreciate it. And to everybody that's involved, whether it's the Eagle Ford or somewhere up there in West Texas or other parts of the state of Texas, thank you for providing, being part of the energy sector, a very important sector to our Texas economy. When you look at the jobs that are created because of the energy sector, you're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs that are created, either directly or indirectly. When you look at the revenues that are brought into the state of Texas, or even the local revenues, or even think about this, even the PUF funds, and I think Todd and I were in the state legislature, money for higher ed for the University of Texas, Texas A&M, you're talking about monies from the oil and gas. This is why I've been a big champion of the energy sector, the oil and gas sector, and certainly I want to be very helpful to the sector for the reasons I mentioned: jobs, 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 and jobs. But it's not only jobs, but it's also making sure that we are independent. Imagine if we have to depend on other countries for our energy, just like Eastern Europe in many ways is dependent on Russia. So for geopolitical reasons, energy independence is very important. So it's important for jobs, but it's also important for our geopolitical reasons, national security. Finally, I've done several things working with the energy and gas industry, but I have to say probably my proudest accomplishment is working with, in a bipartisan way, with Representative Joe Barton, where he and I were able to pass the bill and that would lift the ban on oil and gas. That allow us to export, and being able to export energy creates jobs here, of course, exports, but also provides a strong sense of national security. And again, I appreciate everybody that's involved in the energy sector, and certainly glad that I'm here with y'all today.
Well, thank you so much for those remarks, Congressman Cuellar. We do have some time for some questions, if you don't mind sticking around with us for a little bit. You know, you talked about jobs, and COVID-19 has really hit Americans hard, and hardworking Texans here across the state. Do you foresee any additional stimulus coming out of DC, and what would that mean for Texas and this industry?
Well, you know, yes. You know, I sit on the Appropriations Committee. So one, we have to do a CR. I wish we would do the appropriations on time, but we're looking at a CR, continuing resolution, so we can make sure the government keeps running. But tied into that, we also want to look at another relief bill. The PPP are so important for businesses to make sure that they're able to continue under this very difficult times. At the same time, I've talked to the American Petroleum Institute, folks like Mike Summers and other folks at the state level, like Todd Staples. And a lot of times when you look at the energy sector, I've asked them, what can we do to help you? And a lot of times, the PPP is important, but they want to make sure that government doesn't get involved and burdensome regulations, so they can make sure that they are able to do their job as a part of the private sector. So I want to be helpful to the energy sector. I have been helpful to the energy sector. Again, this is something that we are looking at, but the PPP will be helpful to the state of Texas.
Right. And so when you're looking at COVID-19 and trying to figure out how to respond to that, what types of data points do you look at that you think are important when assessing COVID over the past 6 months? 6 months.
First of all, let's look at what COVID has done to our economy, and let's look at what it's done to the health of the individual. The health of the individual is extremely important. The health of the economy is also very important. Can we find a balance where we can open up our economy in a safe way? Can we do it in such a way that we balance the health of the economy and, of course, the health of the individual? What we ought to look at when we look at the COVID-19, we should look at several things. One, are we doing enough testing? Two, are we tracking and monitoring the people that are positive? Three, are the hospitals not working in a crisis mode? And then the other thing is, do we have at least 2 weeks of cases going down? Different parts of the state of Texas have been hit very differently. And as you know, we're hoping that sometime this fall we'll have a vaccine. And I feel confident that we will. But we got to make sure we don't set an artificial deadline for that vaccine. Let the scientists, let the researchers come up with that vaccine when they're ready and it's safe to be used. And if we're able to do that, keep in mind, what's different from what happened 102 years ago in 1918 was, we learned a lot of lessons, using a mask, social distancing, washing our hands, using hand sanitizers. We learned lessons from 102 years ago. But what makes this different is we now have technology, modern medicine, and that's why I think we'll be able to come up with a vaccine, a safe vaccine, and find that balance between the health of the individual and the health of the economy. What's going to get people back is where they're able to go out there, spend money, go back to work, and that's going to help bring the unemployment down again, get more jobs, and the energy sector is one that's been hit. We saw what happened in the world economy before this hit. You had the Russians and the Saudi Arabians that were fighting out there, and that had an impact on us over here. But COVID-19 has had an impact, and we can find a balance between the health of the individual and the health of the economy.
Great. Well, and you talked about the importance of wearing a mask, social distancing, and those health assessments. Are there any actions that you would suggest Americans take beyond that maybe businesses should be focusing on regarding their employees?
One of the things that I'm working on is to help businesses in the sense that if your company, or it can be let's say a university, a business or university, for example, if you follow the rules and you do what you're supposed to do, then you should not be penalized by a lawsuit. As you know, one of the things I've been pushing at is limited liability. That is, if a company or university follows the rules, unless there's an intentional violation or gross negligence, then in that case, you can have a lawsuit to protect the workers. But I don't think it's fair that you should be penalized because you're trying to follow the rules. Look, I'm an attorney by profession, but I've been a small business owner. I know what it is to pay taxes, have overhead. I know all that. I've run a business, but I've never done it under a pandemic. So, to all the business owners out there and the other folks going, I hand it to you that you're working under very difficult times. And that's why I want to make sure that, the limited liability to help you get back on your feet is there, along with some extra assistance on the PPP, the relief bill.
Right. Well, yeah, these businesses are getting hit hard, and they're, most of them are just doing their best to stay afloat and keep their employees employed. What kinds of information can business leaders provide you to help you to navigate your efforts to reopen the economy?
Certainly real life stories from different sectors, including the energy sector, is key, is very, very important. So instead of talking about concepts, tell me about real life stories. Talk to me about somebody who was working in your sector and you had to let them go. Talk to me what happened when, the average salary in Texas was about $52,000 a year, but the energy was paying $117,000. Talk to me about what happens to that individual. Talk to me what happens about the family. Look, people don't want to be on unemployment. People that work in the energy sector, they want to work. We're Americans. We want to work. And that's the best thing we can do, is to open up the economy. Again, I emphasize, in a balanced way, with the health of the individual and the health of a company or the overall. So I would ask you to please reach out. I work along. I'm a Democrat, but I work along with a lot of my Republicans, whether it's on the Senate or on the House side. We work together because we might be Democrats or Republicans, but we're Americans first, and we certainly are Texans also.
Absolutely. We definitely need more of that, Congressman. You were instrumental in establishing the Oil and Gas Caucus in the U.S. Congress, and your constituents benefit greatly from the resources provided by oil and natural gas. What more can industry do to help promote the positive aspects of this industry and what it means to things like schools and highway funding?
Yes. A lot of times when people criticize the energy sector, they really don't understand, with all due respect, they don't understand the impact that you provide. First of all, let's talk about jobs. In my district, there are thousands of jobs. I think at one time we had about 40,000 jobs that were created by the energy sector. So one is the jobs that we have. The second thing is the monies that go to local governments, the monies that go to local schools. For example, when you look at the mineral oil, the valuations that schools and counties, for example, look at, that's very important, because I'll give you one example. The United Independent School District in Laredo in Webb County, from the mineral valuations, they get about $63 million. Imagine if you just took that away. What would that mean for that school district? Either they have to raise taxes in the amount of $63 million, or they have to cut teachers and cut spending for our schools in the amount of $63 million. So people need to understand what is the impact of the energy sector. When you, as I said a while ago, when you look at the average of $52,000, the average pay here in Texas, and look at what the energy sector was paying, before this COVID-19, $117,000. That's double the amount, more than double the amount. So people need to understand, when they look at energy, they look at jobs, and they look at the revenues that come from local governments and local school districts, but also at the state level, for highways, for the roads that we have, for the PUF funds, for Texas A&M and UT, the monies that go there, those monies are important. So we have to make sure that people understand the impact for jobs and really, a lot of industries, not only the direct jobs, but the additional industries, like, for example, school districts that depend on this money. Finally, let me say one more thing. I asked the industry to do this. We got to tell a better story about how we can have, for example, in the state of Texas, we're number one on oil and gas in the whole country, but we're also number one in the wind sector. So you can have a way that that you can still take care of the environment. I mean, I don't know of a single company that I've met that is out there aggressively trying to hurt the environment. No, you're trying to do the right thing. Companies are trying to do the right thing, and people need to know that you're trying to do the right thing. In fact, if you look at some of the bigger energy companies, what are they doing? They're actually buying, some of this alternative sources and areas that they're going in, whether it's wind or some other area. So we got to tell our story of the energy sector in a better way, in a succinct way, in a simple way, where people understand that the energy sector means jobs, it means revenues for our schools, for our roads, for higher ed, for public ed, but it also means that we're trying to take care of the environment. We're trying to take care of our environment.
Absolutely. And that is what we're trying to do here today, Congressman, and we appreciate you being a part of that very important discussion. Thank you so much for your time. Our industry could not continue and thrive without strong leadership in Washington, D.C., fighting for their constituents that live right here in the Eagle Ford. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good day. Wonderful. Thank you.
Congressman Cuellar, thank you for your time today. Our industry could not continue to thrive without the strong leadership you bring to Washington, D.C., fighting for your constituents back here in the Eagle Ford and Laredo region. I will now kick the program back to Todd to conclude today's program.
Well, thank you, Judge Stephanie Marino, and thank you, Congressman Henry Cuellar, for a compelling conversation. We appreciate both of you, and we thank you for your leadership. This just about concludes today's program. I want to thank Webb County Judge Tano Tijerina, State Representative J.M. Lozano, and Congressman Henry Cuellar. I want to thank each of you for your important and thoughtful comments this morning. We know that there are challenging times ahead, particularly as the state and communities here in the Eagle Ford region address budget issues. The oil and natural gas industry looks forward to bouncing back and helping restart our economy as this pandemic gets under control. Texas oil and natural gas is making our nation and our state cleaner, stronger, better. We are proud to partner with businesses and families in the Eagle Ford who want to build a bright future for you and your families. Most of all, we are so thankful to each of you who have joined us today. Getting the right information out is what is needed for sound energy policy. And that's why we invite you today, right now, as we're on this program, to take your phones and text the word TXOGA to this number, 52886. You see it on your screen. That's the only number you need to type in. And what this will enable you to do is to subscribe to email updates about the latest information about the oil and natural gas industry. Right here in Texas, and I promise we won't spam you. You can unsubscribe anytime you want to, and it'll be very manageable. So I hope you'll do that now. Lastly, tomorrow we have another virtual energy summit covering the southern Gulf Coast of Texas. So tune in if you can. Next week, we'll be conducting 2 more webinars in our virtual energy summit series covering South Central Texas and San Antonio, as well as the greater Houston and Southeast Texas area. So be sure to register on the events page at TXOGA.org to join. To close, we have a short video about the very key to success in the energy world, and that is the men and women who make up this vital industry. Thanks again for tuning in, and we hope you have a great week.
What does it mean to be an employee of the energy industry? It means hard work, dedication, and ingenuity. It means utilizing the latest innovative technologies. It means proudly serving the industry that's defined Texas over the last 100 years. Our industry has fueled our past, and Texans can count on us to fuel our next 100 years. We work because we care about Texas, our nation, and our world. And we're committed to building a better future. Excellence is our standard. Safety, security, and science are at our core. Over 100 years of excellence, ingenuity, and innovation. And we are always looking for ways to improve. Because this is our economy, our environment, and our future too.